Hi, everybody. This is Blaine DeSantis. I welcome you to a new edition of Books and Looks. Yeah, it's just our weekly voyage of discovery in the wonderful world of books. Books that I've been reading and that I've been interviewing authors about. That's correct. And today I've got sad news. That's right. Now, you got to stick with me, folks. We have been hit by a host of problems this year. We have had allergy problems. We've had dead pets. We've had Wi Fi issues. And today we're supposed to have Anne Morrissy on. She got pneumonia. I mean, it just doesn't get any worse than this. This poor woman for a week has been struggling. She's coughing. She's hacking. It's just difficult for the poor woman. And now, because of that, we aren't going to be able to have Anne on until November. That's right. I'm booked up through that time. So I tell you what, I feel so badly about this woman and about this whole situation. I'm going to talk a little bit about her book, if you don't mind. Now, please stick with me. Okay, stay with me, friend. What's the name of her book? It's called Street Fight. Street Fight. Look at the pictures there. Look at that. Look at the old cars, the bullet holes, and everything else. Friends, when I got notice about this book and the name of the book being Street Fight, and then I saw a car from the 1920s with bullet holes in it, you're thinking Al Capone. I'm thinking the gang, the mafia, the whole thing, the mob. Guess what? It's not about that. No, there's something that preceded that in Chicago. And that's what this book is about. Anne Morrissey has done a great job showing us a fascinating topic of Americana that we never saw. This is all about the Chicago taxi wars. All right, let that sink in for a minute. Chicago taxi wars. Yes, there were wars over taxis back from 1916, when the first taxi came on the street in Chicago, until about 1929. The Chicago taxi. Did you know that? I never knew that. I don't. And she has done a wonderful, wonderful job. Street Fight, folks. This book came out in March, okay? So it's available if you want to get it. And we will have her on for an interview. But I'm going to just tell you a little bit about this. This is the war between Yellow Cab and everybody else. And by war, I mean a war. We're talking about violence. We're talking about lots of stuff that went on here. By the way, did you know? That's right. Did you know who the owner of Yellow Cab was? Do you know? It's the one and only John Hertz. Hertz? Yeah, that's right. Hertz Rent a Car? That's it. That's where he got his start. He got a start as the owner of the Yellow Cab Company in Chicago. And he was a savvy businessman. And he built this thing up from the first 7 cars to over 2,500 taxis over this time period. And this is the part of his story about how he got into the business and about how they became to monopolize the taxi business in Chicago because nobody else was there until the Hotel LaSalle. Now, they started their own taxi company. Have you ever heard of that? A taxi company started by a hotel? Well, we sort of see it now. You're going to the airport, you get your airport shuttle back and forth from when you get your luggage to the hotel. This is sort of the same situation, but the Hotel LaSalle taxi went anywhere and did anything for its guests. Why did it want to do that? Because for a period of 3 or 4 years, Yellow Cab was paying them to have a taxi stand right in front of their hotel to pick up their guests and take them places. It got to the point they were paying $1,000 a month. Now, if you're talking back 1919, that's a lot of money. Well, they thought they could make more money themselves, so they went in competition with Yellow Cab. Not a good thing to do. But what happened was the taxi drivers between Yellow Cab and the Hotel LaSalle started getting into fights over these taxi stands and where they could park and where they couldn't park. And you know what? There was no way Hotel LaSalle was going to beat out Yellow Cab. Yellow Cab was too big, but they wanted a foothold. Well, they started to get a little foothold, but then along came Checker Cab. Now, you probably still see them. They're still around, Checker Cab Company. Here they come. Now they want a part of the business. And now this is where things start to get really hairy in Chicago, because now the taxi wars take on really different levels of violence. It's no longer car hitting car or bumping car or yelling or screaming. Now we've got full on assaults. We've got fires. We've got bombings. We've got murders. Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, they're killing people over there in Chicago taxi wars, all over getting a taxi stand and having access to taxis. Many a time, theater goers would come out. Diners would come out of the restaurants. They want to have a taxi to their hotel. Wait a minute. We've got a fight going on. Yes, physical fights between cab drivers. It is an outstanding research book. This is something which is just, again, I love little bits of Americana. And this book, Street Fight, is just something like that. Even people in Chicago don't remember this. It was 105 years ago, okay? But still, they don't remember this. If they don't remember it, God knows me here in South Carolina doesn't remember it. But it's really something. And the violence that went on, eventually, now here's this thing that even get more amazing in this street fight. Folks, just bear with me, okay? Now, Checker Cab starts to fight within itself. That's right. They have a civil war within Checker Cab because now you have the union and the non-union drivers in Checker Cab, and they're fighting about it. They want to have ownership, control. And of course, the union people have the gangs behind them. And then the non-union people have drivers that are called clubbers. Guess you know what they do. Yeah. They're pretty handy with their fists. So we have all sorts of stuff going on here for a period of 4 or 5 years within Checker Cab. It is out of this world. You even had during this time period, the president of Yellow Cab, which was not Hertz. No, he was no longer the president. He was the CEO. But the president of Yellow Cab was killed on Christmas Day while riding a horse. An experienced horseman went out for a little ride around the community in Chicago. He's dead? How'd that happen? No one knows. But it's a fascinating look at things. And one of the little things that if you know me, you know I love horses. I love horse racing. And you know my son, Matthew, is a lead handicapper for Naira Bets up in New York. Well, one of the fascinating things is that John Hertz also loved horses. And one of his horses, called Rain Count, won the Kentucky Derby. And then, years later, one of his horses, called Count Fleet, won the Triple Crown. Count Fleet now up in the Horse Racing Hall of Fame up in Saratoga, where Matthew is right now. So, he was a heck of a sportsman. But eventually it got to be too much, and he had ended up selling out and concentrating on his rent-a-car business. Fascinating stuff. It's all here, folks. It's all here in Street Fight. And like I said, Anne Morrissy is going to come back. We'll hear her in the beginning of November, okay? But until then, I just felt so badly for this. This pneumonia knocked her down. I'll tell you, it really knocked her out. Wow. But around a year ago, when we had started to transition from just podcasts to YouTubes, I had on a gentleman by the name of Chris Swimmer. Now, we weren't showing pictures. We weren't showing the videos, nothing. 20 people. 20 people listened to that video. Well, I asked Chris to come back because I felt so badly for him. He had such a great book, and he's coming back this summer. We're going at the Summer of 1876 Revisited. This is a wonderful, wonderful book about what happened in the year of 1876. And Chris has taken some of the highlights. He's going to come back and talk to us again. The thing about Chris is he's like me. He's an independent podcaster. He has 3 or 4 different podcasts he does. He's not tied in with one of the big boys. He does it himself, and he puts a lot of work into that. I have a lot of respect for him, and I'm happy I can call him a friend. And we have issues with each other. We write each other and talk a little bit, and that's really nice. And you don't find that too often in this business. But Chris is going to come back to talk about the Summer of 1876. And I think you're really, really going to enjoy that. It's just a wonderful book. By the way, I always tell you to go to my website, viewsonbooks.com. Do you know that his book, The Summer of 1876, is the most viewed book review I have? Yeah. Over 1,200 people have read my book review. Now, again, I'm an independent guy. I'm down here in Greenville, South Carolina. We don't have sponsors. We don't have anything like that. But people are coming and reading it. That's a testament to that book and a testament to the fact they like what I had to say about it, I guess. But anyway, 1,200. So obviously there's a lot of popularity with that book, and I think you'll really enjoy seeing when Chris comes on in August. And what's my most number one YouTube video with a full blown, audio video? A book that I would have never thought that yet was so intriguing. Only a few weeks ago. Did you watch this? Did you listen to this? A History of the World in 12 Shipwrecks. Our most popular interview yet, combining history, archaeology, shipwrecks. We covered everything. We went from 1550 BC, my friends, up to 1941. We have tie-ins to Sinbad the Sailor. We've got tie-ins to the Homer and the Iliad, to the Bible, to the Epic of Gilgamesh. We've got so many tie-ins that we have found through these shipwrecks. It is just a fascinating book. It might not be a book you're going to pick up, but it's something you want to listen to. And boy, I'll tell you what, David Gibbons did a wonderful job on that. Wonderful job. By the way, you talk about wonderful jobs. Here's one that's coming up too. I'm whetting your appetite, folks. It's called The Talented Mrs. Mandelbaum. Now, this is something. This author, she's coming up to PS2. Yep. We have Margaret Fox is coming on. She's going to join us in a few weeks to talk about Mrs. Mandelbaum. What's about Mrs. Mandelbaum? She began the first organized crime syndicate in America. Can you believe that? We're talking about the 1870s, 1880s, and she started an organized crime syndicate. You don't want to get in her way, I'll tell you that, because Mrs. Mandelbaum stood 6 feet tall and weighed anywhere from 250 to 300 pounds. They said she was a cross between a dumpling and a mountain. Oh, my word. This is a big woman. And she had a brain and a mind. She could, for 20, 30 years, she did this. They could not ever catch her. I'll tell you what, it's a marvelous book. Margaret Fox does wonderful writing, and this is her newest book that's coming out. I can't wait to talk to her about this. I think you're going to really, really enjoy that. And one of the things we talk about books, and you don't realize it here in America, folks, you don't realize it, is the popularity of books. We have some relatives who are here visiting from Romania. No, excuse me. They're visiting from England. They're Romanian of nature. Okay, birth, but they're here from England. They went to a Barnes & Noble. They've never seen anything like it. The kids never saw anything like that. All the, every edition, every copy of all the books they like and they can't get in England are all here. All these books. They spent hours in Barnes & Noble. And we've got a professor coming on to talk to us about the history of the American bookstore. And that's going to be fascinating because it's gone through massive changes throughout the years. And now, of course, probably the biggest bookstore we have is Amazon. And then one of the other things that's happened is that Costco has decided they're no longer going to be having books for sale there. Don't quite understand that, but they say it's just too labor intensive for their people to keep changing books and straightening up piles. I think that's a big cop-out, okay? Just a big cop-out. But what are you going to do? You're not going to get them at Costco. So you're going to have to go other places, independent places, your Barnes & Nobles, your used bookstores. You're going to get them from the library. You're going to get them from audiobooks, whatever. But you don't realize how much we have with these books. It's just amazing. Utterly amazing. I'm telling you, it's just books in America are something different than anywhere else in the world. If you ever travel other parts of the world, it's rare to find a bookstore. You just can't find them. They're not there. They may have it in a department store. They may have a little section on books, but pure bookstores, if they have them, they're tiny, teeny tiny. Except for that one over there in Paris. Now, what's that one in front? The Shakespeare bookstore. Have you ever been over there? That's right next to Notre Dame Cathedral. And there's the Shakespeare bookstore. Huge store. Huge. That's the biggest store I've ever seen over in Europe. Okay. And it's nothing compared to the size of Barnes & Noble. So just really interesting. And we take it for granted so often. We have got books coming on, folks, that are just okay. We all know that Charles Darwin ended up in the Galapagos Island. And what did he do? He started his whole theory of evolution, pristine, untouched by humankind. Did you know there were murders down there? Yeah. I'm telling you, folks, it's a true story. It's a book called Eden Undone, and I'm having the author here with us in a few months. She's going to be talking about this book, Eden Undone, about some people who went to the Galapagos Island to start a utopian civilization. And in the end of the 7 people, I think 5 of them end up dead. What happened? How did this happen? And what happened to Utopia? I don't know. But obviously something happened down there. True story. Okay. All this stuff is true, folks. There's nothing, no fiction in this stuff at all. This is all stuff that's out there that's just fascinating. Just fascinating stuff, And it's such a shame that these authors, friends, you know, these authors are not, many of them, not published by the biggest publishers. They don't get the front of the store displays, but there are books out there that are wonderfully written, wonderfully written. I'm very happy to announce that the New York Times listed the top 100 books of the 21st century. And I'm very proud to say I've read 2 of them. Okay. I don't read that stuff. I read, as I said, real books for real readers. And one of the shocking things was one of my all-time favorites, if you get a chance to read it, The Gentleman of Moscow by Amor Towles. What a book. Gentleman in Moscow, not on the list. Unbelievable. Best book I read in over 25 years. Unbelievable. Nope, didn't make the list. Who knows? Who knows who makes these lists? But anyway, we got a lot of fun books coming up. And I'm sorry I don't have an author. And it's not that we haven't tried, but as those of us near to the production know, we have been trying desperately. We have filled up every week through October. We're into November, actually. And we've been trying to bring in all these authors, but when you're beset with illnesses, allergies, dead pets, pneumonia, and more lost Wi-Fi, not much you can do. Instead, you get me. And I hope you stayed, and I hope you listened. I thank you so much for being with us today, okay? So anyway, on behalf of viewsonbooks.com, on behalf of my good friends at Podcast Studio X, this is Blaine DeSantis. May all your leaves be pages in a book.